Prince Harry will be back in court for a second day to give more evidence against Mirror Group newspapers, who he accuses of unlawful activities, including phone hacking, to dig up stories on his private life. Accusations that they strongly deny.
Well, we're joined now by Paul McMullen, the former deputy features editor at the now-defunct News of the World. He gave evidence at the Leveson inquiry into press ethics back in 2011, claiming former editors knew hacking was taking place at that paper. We can also speak to the broadcaster and former editor of the Sunday Times, Andrew Neil. Very good morning to both of you. Paul, you are very open about the fact that you worked on stories on the royals and particularly on Prince Harry, which were obtained through hacking. As you listen to him in court, explaining the effect that he says that this disputed practice had on him, let's just put those legal technicalities to one side. He believes that illegal methods were used to gather information on him. And he says they left him paranoid, phobic, depressed, they ruined his relationships. As somebody who was involved, by your own admission, does that leave you with a sense of guilt or shame?
Well, not really, because we did much worse to his dad, and his dad was just dismissed it, those annoying newspaper people, and got over it. So, I mean, Prince Harry's big problem, he's got Prince in his name, so he's offered a castle when he was a teenager, turned it down, and was born in an incredibly privileged position. There's a small possibility that he might have risen to be head of state of, Canada, Australia, 14 countries. So I think, and we were paying for it, public paid for him, so I think we had every right to, I don't know about listening to his phone calls, but...
That was illegal.
It was, but, you could say taking drugs is illegal, so it takes a...
Two wrongs don't make a right, of course.
Yes, but you need someone who's kind of been there to be able to catch people doing that, and that's the balance, isn't it? You've got someone's mental health at stake, possibly, as his mother indeed suffered. I mean, I chased his mother a lot, but, I mean, I think...
Chased as in?
Well, I chased around the world for about 5 years. It was...
I mean, because that's quite a phrase to use, considering that one of Prince Harry's problems is that his mother was literally chased by paparazzi on bikes, and he blames them for killing her.
No, I've been in car chases in Paris with French paparazzi, and it's terrifying and exhilarating, and it clearly ended tragically. And I mean, it started off as so much fun. And Diana was actually our friend.
Why is chasing someone, hunting someone, fun?
Well, she did play with us a bit. I mean, when I was down in Saint-Tropez, I wrote the last story before she died in the News of the World. And she'd rung up one of the paparazzi and said, well, the boat's just coming round the bend between Italy and France. I'll stand on the deck with Dodie and I'll give you a nice package. And that Pap made $1 million out of those pictures, and it was a gift.
I think I remember those pictures.
Diana,
but Paul, I just wonder whether, because you say, well, his father brushed it off. We actually don't know internally, mentally, what that did to the king, but we can presume we know what it did to Camilla. we can imagine that even though Princess Diana was hunted, chased, she suffered because of it.
What's wrong with knowing the truth about the people who rule over us? I mean, he is still the head of state.
Because some of it's private, some of it isn't.
No, but it's brilliant.
Something
the public's
that's important.
Totally with us. So we used to sit outside Highgrove. I say we, not say me exactly, because I don't want to go to jail. We used to use those aircraft scanners to listen to pilots that kind of nerds do. And you could get the police and their security guards talking to each other, and you could also occasionally get a royal. You couldn't do it in London because too much mobile traffic.
It's stalking, isn't it?
Totally. Stalking and harassment, that was my main MO.
And you have no shame about it whatsoever?
No, I transcribed the tape where Charles said, oh, I'd love to be a tampon, Camilla.
You literally, that doesn't give you any shiver of what was I doing?
And then we put it on an 0898 line, so you rang up and it cost you £5 to listen to it. And so many people did that. I mean, the public were totally with us. And they loved all the illegal stuff we used to do.
You fed it to the public and they consumed it.
Yeah, totally.
And
that's why the News of the World sold 5 million
you were responsible for putting it out there.
And
then it got cancelled.
It was also why the News of the World was closed down. Andrew Neil, broadcaster, former editor of the Sunday Times. We'll come to Prince Harry and the Mirror in a moment, but just more generally, reflecting upon what Paul has been saying, his justification of illegal activity is what the public wanted. Clearly, the press has moved on a long way in the last 10 years in Britain. But when you look back to what was happening in the British media generally, 10, 15, 20 years ago, Paul paints a very sorry picture, doesn't he?
It was a terrible time and there was disgraceful behaviour by the Red Tops. But they paid the price big time. And in some ways, Harry is fighting yesterday's war. Or he's fighting a war that he and others have actually won. In the forefront of this disgraceful behaviour was the News of the World. It is no more. It will never come back. I understand on good authority that the fallout from hacking has cost Rupert Murdoch and his organisation, he owned the News of the World, £1 billion. I'll say that again, £1 billion. It's cost the Mirror hundreds of millions. These red-top tabloids, which used to be a real force in the land, Sun used to sell 4.2 million, it's now down to 700,000 and falling. The Mirror is not any kind of force in the land whatsoever. That kind of red-top tabloid journalism is over. It's gone. It barely exists anymore. It doesn't matter. He's won. And, you know, he says British media is at rock bottom. Why would he say that? The kind of media he hates most of all is in deep decline, irreversible decline, in my view. The kind of media which Britain should be proud of, though whether he reads it or not is another matter, whether it's The Times, The Financial Times, The Guardian, The Independent, The Economist, my own Spectator, Good Morning Britain, Sky News, BBC News, they're all doing well. They are proud manifestations of the United Kingdom. So I just say, I don't really know why this is all about, except his general vendetta against the media that he can't get rid of.
Andrew, I was just going to say, Andrew, do you have any sympathy? I mean, Paul doesn't seem to have any sympathy with what Prince Harry describes was the effect on him. Do you not have some human sympathy for him when he describes his life as a child and a teenager? His mother was chased by the paparazzi. She died in a car crash in the wake of that. He feels that he was effectively under surveillance when he was at school and when he was trying to launch himself in the world, having normal relationships. And they were ruined by this intrusion.
Well, of course I have sympathy, and a lot of the stuff that was done should never have been done. But that's over. It doesn't happen now. And some of what he complains about is pretty innocuous. So the papers write that he broke his thumb. I mean, so what? Who cares? And as I say, he's won. He's had his vengeance. They've had their comeuppance. Why, in this day and age, is he still going on about it? Why rake it over, bringing back the hoary old story of James Hewitt in his testimony yesterday? Why do all that? Why not move on? Declare victory and move on instead of fighting battles that you've already won with information which came across quite clearly in his testimony yesterday that he was not across. Turns out he hadn't even read some of the stories that supposedly caused him so much stress. It turns out the stories he was complaining about came from illegal means had actually been on the BBC or appeared in other newspapers. So I think we can overdo this. I think it was tough for Harry losing his mother when he did, and it was tough for that constant press intrusion. But that was then. This is now. He should draw a line under it, have the satisfaction that the journalism he hates most is now in irreversible decline, and as I say, move on.
I don't know, Andrew, if you can comment on this. You mentioned The Spectator earlier. There's reports overnight that there may be a change of ownership of The Spectator. Lloyd's may be putting the Barclay brothers into administration. Would a change of ownership at The Spectator make any difference to your independence?
Well, it depends who owned it. So, at the moment, the Spectator has wonderful independence. Indeed, the Spectator editor is probably the most independent editor in the country. I'm not aware of any change of ownership or that these reports will have anything to do with the Spectator. It's a separate, profitable company, and we intend to carry on as we are, onwards and upwards, doing the kind of journalism that Britain should be proud of, and that I hope maybe one day Prince Harry will get round to reading.
All right, Andrew Neil, thank you very much indeed. Paul, day two. When you look at the way that the tabloids in particular have reacted to what he said, do you think that he'll reload and continue spray gunning them?
Yeah, no, I think he will. Just thinking about it, I do have a little bit of sympathy for him because, I mean, we started hacking him when he was about 13. And my son's 13. I think of a sleazy journalist like me, if you like, listening to my little boy's phone. And, yeah, I mean, Harry was probably done a couple of times a week from about 13 right up until...
So you do feel a bit ashamed?
Well, I didn't do that. That was the royal.
I know, but you do
went
feel a
to
bit
jail
ashamed
for. He
about
went to jail for 6 months for
things.
doing that. And but he may not win because most of the stories that we wrote about Harry and Diana and Charles came from our readers. I mean, our phone used to buzz all the time. You know, I felt sorry for him. You know, he's a teenager, he's in a pub, and we get 2 or 3 phone calls saying, Harry's in a pub, he's doing cocaine, give me 50 grand, please. And then we'd all run down there, and it'd be half the pub would be journalists, you know, poor lad. But again, if you're going to inherit the throne, you've kind of got to suck it up a bit and be a bit more careful with your mobile. And as you know, he got rid of his mobile for a while, so he couldn't be hacked or listened to. So,
all right. Well, Paul, we'll wait to see what more he says. Wonder if he's watching this morning, hears you saying that. But it feels like a moment of mortification there for you.
Well, no, actually, because his uncle, I met him in this building, Charles Spencer. And actually, I didn't know if he was going to hit me, but he shook my hand and he said, well, look, at least you've been honest. So thank God for that. So, you know.
Paul, thank you very much.
None of us want our teenage children's phones being hacked by people after a story.
No, indeed.